Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Whitehall City Council meeting of May 19th, 2020. And I'd like to start with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Ogg, will you please call roll?
Coniston. Cantor.
Present.
Peck. Present. Morrison.
Present.
Bailey.
Present.
Rodriguez.
Present.
Elmore.
Present.
President Potter.
Present.
Mr. President, I'd like to move to excuse the absent member.
Second.
I've had a motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Rodriguez to excuse our absent member. Clerk, please call roll.
Cantor.
Yes.
Peck.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Rodriguez. Elmore.
Yes.
The absent member has been excused. At this point, I would accept a motion for the approval of our May 5th, 2020 minutes.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion for the approval of minutes from the May 5th, 2020 agenda and regular meeting minutes, sir.
Second.
I've had a motion by Mr. Cantor, second by Ms. Elmore for the approval of the minutes. Ms. Ogg, please call roll.
Cantor.
Yes.
Peck.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
The minutes have been approved. At this time, we have our first poll public of the evening, and as in prior meetings, we give folks an opportunity to submit to council office, since we're sadly not open to the public. And this week, I understand we have got one. Ms. Ogg, if you could please share that with us.
Gerald Dixon, 3877 Donny Street, Whitehall, Ohio. President of council, members of council. For the second time in only 60 days, Whitehall has experienced terrible flooding, that which has again created another physical, emotional, and financial burden to Whitehallians, some of whom are simply not going to be able to bear it a second time. We have heard from Service Director Woodruff 2 months ago on this issue, and again today, this time with Mayor Maggard alongside. They have offered up reasonable explanation for the causes of this trauma, which I thank them for. However, as a resident whose family has been here over half a century, I can personally attest that these events are exceedingly rare and uncommon. And while I understand officials have no hand in God's almighty agenda, they do work on citizens. So to that end, there must be solutions and efforts towards at least mitigating these events for the benefit of those whom they do work for. To that end, I want to see and hear council, the mayor and her administration brainstorming to come up with solutions for the future. It is clear, with perhaps more than these storms appearing on a regular basis, with the threat of climate change and or the systems for drainage being antiquated and insufficient for the deluge, that some repair, some solution to correct it needs to be addressed. Perhaps even a symposium among Central Ohio suburban mayors, along with engineers and such. What I do know is this: with this threat to our community's health and vitality, unless bold solutions are brought forth to remedy this situation, no amount of people, rich or poor or in between, will ever want to make Whitehall their home. So then, no amount of aesthetic improvements to draw in tax-paying citizens and businesses and consumers will ever be enough to ward off the wave of negative impacts this sort of calamity will continue to serve up. Thank you.
Ms. Aug, thank you for reading the comments of Mr. Dixon. We'll now move to our standing committee reports. Administration and Financial Management, Chairperson Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Administration and Financial Management did meet last Tuesday. We discussed a number of items which will be introduced tonight for your consideration. And our minutes are on file. We will meet again next Tuesday sometime after 6:30 here.
Thank you. Community and Elder Advocacy, Chairperson Elmore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Community and Elder Advocacy did meet last week. We had no pending legislation. However, we discussed several issues. Our minutes are on file. We will meet again next Tuesday, 6:30.
Very good. Thank you. Community Standards and Enforcement, Chairperson Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Community Standards and Enforcement met last Tuesday. We have no pending legislation. Our minutes are on file. We'll meet again next Tuesday sometime after 6:30.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Economic Development, Chairperson Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Economic Development also met last Tuesday. Our minutes are on file. We'll meet again next Tuesday, sometime after 6:30 in here.
Very good. Infrastructure, Maintenance and Services, Chairperson Heck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Infrastructure, Maintenance, and Services met last Tuesday. We have no drafts or pending legislation. Our minutes are on file, and we will meet next Tuesday after 6:30.
Terrific. Public Safety, Chairperson Coniston, who is absent this evening. I do know that her committee met last week, and they will meet again next Tuesday sometime after 6:30. Parks and Recreation, Chairperson Cantor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Parks and Recreation also met last week, and our minutes are on file. We have no drafts or resolutions tonight. We will meet again next week, right here, after 6:30.
Thank you. Officials' reports. Mayor Kim Magner.
Good evening. I would like for consideration for first reading and approval for ordinances 37, 38, 39, 40, 44, and 45. And I believe Director Woodruff will speak to some other issues that are concern of council this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And Director of Development and Public Service, Mr. Woodruff.
Thanks, Mr. President. If you don't mind, I'll come up here and pull down my mask a little just so people can hear me maybe a little clearer. First, I want to apologize for my attire. Normally, I come a little more dressed up to council, but I was in early this morning dealing with the flooding issue that occurred overnight into this morning. I first also want to thank the hard work of Jeff Hart, Ty Peterson, Will Aug, and Robert Brinson, members of our staff who were in very early this morning, about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, beginning to deal with this issue. As the mayor has mentioned, obviously we are cognizant of the flooding issue that occurred overnight this morning, and our sympathies goes to folks who had to deal with this issue for the second time in 60 days. Central Ohio region was hit with an extremely hard rainfall last night. We had about 3.7 inches of rainfall in the last 24 hours. We saw more rainfall in 6 hours than during the entire flooding event that occurred in March. Between midnight and 2 a.m., we received approximately an inch of rain an hour, and nearly 3 inches between 10:30 last night and 3 a.m. As an example, this wasn't just limited to Whitehall. The Olentangy River near Cannon Drive, or along Cannon Drive near OSU, it crested at its 50-year flood level. So obviously the first issue is caused by the rainfall surge in our creeks and streams. There was a flash flood warning issued yesterday, and I think all of us saw that in Big Walnut, Turkey Run, and Mason Run, where those creeks crested their banks, which did not allow then for the storm water to clear the system. The second issue then comes from the excess storm water that has nowhere to go, because once the creeks and streams have crested, that water cannot discharge, and so water does what water does, which is it finds a place to go, which in our case, in Columbus's case, in Bexley and other communities, is into our sanitary system. That's through manhole covers, that's through whether it's cracks or roots into sanitary lines, it's people opening up manhole covers in the street to let the streets drain. There's a variety of different reasons that it happens. But again, this isn't just limited to Whitehall. Our system is tied into the city of Columbus's system, much like Bexley, much like other communities. So when there's flooding throughout the region, the system is oversaturated, it creates a bottleneck. There is no fix for this, short of a regional approach to increase capacity. We could increase the size of our pipes in Whitehall, but if we don't increase then the capacity in the city of Columbus sewer system, it has nowhere to go and would create a bottleneck. So as I've talked to a tremendous amount of residents today, they all ask the same thing, which is what is the city doing to address flooding? So in the short term, we have asked residents who experienced flooding both on March 20th and today to go to our website and fill out a form where they can put down their information, they can put down the amount of damage, how much water, they can add photos. We are collecting this data as we work with the Franklin County Emergency Management Agency, Franklin County EMA, which is our point of contact for ultimately FEMA. The city cannot go directly to FEMA. We go through Franklin County EMA, who goes through the Ohio EMA. So we collect this data, provide it to Franklin County EMA, who collects data from the rest of Franklin County, and then ultimately they work on our behalf to try to see if we can actually qualify for some disaster relief funds. It's very similar. It's a little apples and oranges, but it's very similar to a hurricane. So that's, sometimes you have to meet the threshold to be able to qualify for these funds. So again, we would ask anyone who experienced flooding to go to our website, www.whitehall-oh.us, and fill out the form. Secondly, the city has embarked on a 15-year, multi-million-dollar plan approved by the EPA to reduce the amount of infiltration of stormwater into our sanitary system. We are in the middle of this. This is a multi-million-dollar 15-year plan. So it includes things like inserting new liners into old sanitary lines to prevent that infiltration. It's improving and replacing manhole covers. In some cases, it was even separating places where our sanitary and storm sewers were hooked together. So we are doing that to mitigate the amount of rainwater that can get into our system. But again, I remind you, it's all about what's downflow from us. And then, so those are the things that we are doing right now. And then, finally, in the short term, the mayor has prepared legislation that is on council's agenda this evening that would appropriate funds for a homeowner flooding prevention and mitigation program. We are still working on the details about how, what kind of programs, what kind of mitigation projects would be considered and how each resident would be able to qualify. We are working on that, and as the mayor mentioned, we hope to have something back to you here very shortly. Again, we understand that both of these rain events, by the data, suggest that they are somewhere between a 10 and a 25-year rain event. It sounds disingenuous when we say that because they happen 60 days apart. But that's what the data says, that's how much rain we received in a short period of time. We certainly want to be resources to folks. That's why we've contacted and are partnering with the Franklin County EMA to determine if any federal funds can be received here. And that's why the mayor has asked for the funding to establish this program to be able to work towards mitigating this problem in the future for our residents. That's all the official report I have this evening.
Mr. Woodruff, thank you very much for very good information.
Thanks, Zach. Very nice, very good.
And the following official reports have been filed in the council office since the last meeting. The mayor's report to council for April 2020, the auditor's expense report for April 2020, the auditor's bank report for April 2020, the auditor's statement of cash position report for April 2020, and the auditor's review report for April 2020. This evening we have no communications, petitions, or claims. At this point, I would ask Ms. Ogg for a roll call on whether each member of council was given a copy of each item of legislation listed on the agenda prior to the meeting, including any add-on. legislation.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Thank you. This evening, under the third reading, we have got no legislation for consideration tonight. The same holds true for second reading. There is no legislation. Which brings us to first reading. And our first ordinance is 35-2020, authorizing adoption of the May 2020 replacement pages to the codified ordinances of the City of Whitehall and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance number 35-2020 and move for the suspension of all the rules, please.
Second.
Mr. Cantor has introduced ordinance 35-2020, second by Mr. Morrison, and with a request of suspension of all rules. Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move for adoption, please.
Second.
Mr. Cantor has moved for adoption, second by Mr. Morrison. Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Ordinance 35-2020 has been adopted. Next, we have ordinance 36-2020, repealing and replacing ordinance 31-2020, making a supplemental appropriation of $43,169.83 for the Tax Increment Financing Fund 279 to various expense accounts in the 279 fund and authorizing the distribution of the portion of the total service payments attributable to each TIF to the affected vocational school district from the Tax Increment Financing Fund 279 in the amount equal to 100% of the property tax payment the vocational school district would have received, $43,169.83, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 36-2020 and move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
Mr. Bailey has introduced ordinance 36-2020, second by Mr. Morrison, and asked for suspension of all rules. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Morrison for adoption. Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Ordinance 36-2020 has been adopted. Ordinance 37-2020, amending 135.16 C1, titled Capital Improvement and Project Fund, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 37-2020 and move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
Mr. Bailey has introduced ordinance 37-2020, second by Mr. Rodriguez, requesting suspension of all rules. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Rodriguez for adoption. Ms. Aug?
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Ordinance 37-2020 has been adopted. Ordinance 38-2020, amending 135.18B, titled Fleet Reserve and Maintenance Fund, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 38-2020 and move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
Mr. Bailey has introduced ordinance 38-2020 and asked for suspension of all rules, second by Ms. Elmore. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion for adoption by Mr. Bailey, second by Ms. Elmore. Clerk, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Ordinance 38, 2020 has been adopted. Ordinance 39, 2020, amending 135.21B1, Water and Sewer Mandate Improvement Reserve Fund, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 39, 2020, move for suspension of all rules.
Second?
Mr. Bailey has introduced 39, 2020 with suspension of all rules, seconded by Mr. Cantor. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended.
Move to adopt.
Second?
Motion to adopt by Mr. Bailey, seconded by Mr. Cantor. Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 39, 2020 has been adopted. Ordinance 40, 2020, amending 143.15D1 of the codified ordinances of the City of Whitehall titled Emergency Medical Service Billing and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 40, 2020, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
Mr. Bailey has introduced ordinance 40, 2020, and for the suspension of all rules, seconded by Ms. Heck. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President, move to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Bailey, seconded by Ms. Heck. Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Ordinance 40, 2020 has been adopted. Ordinance 41, 2020 will be read by title only this evening, authorizing the mayor to execute and deliver a purchase and sale agreement and other appropriate documents on behalf of the city to sell approximately 0.2 acres of parcels 090-005-410 and 090-001-974 to Continental Real Estate for their designee. And again, that's by title only this evening. Ordinance 42, 2020, authorizing the creation of the credit card tax fees account 101.950.59,620, approving and making appropriation in the amount of $1,000 from unappropriated monies in the General Fund 101 to the credit card fees and expense account 101.950.59,620 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 42, 2020, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Rodriguez for the introduction of ordinance 42, 2020 and suspension of all rules. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Rodriguez. Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Peck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Ordinance 42, 2020 has been adopted. Ordinance 43, 2020 will be read by title only this evening, amending the zoning map attached to Chapter 1122 of the 1970 Codified Ordinances of the City of Whitehall, and as subsequently amended, change the zoning on property located on East Broad Street, parcel number 090-008-249, from Exceptional Use District, EU, to General Commerce District, GDC, property owned by Office City Incorporated. Again, that's by title only. Ordinance 44, 2020, authorizing and approving a fund transfer in the amount of $100,000 from unappropriated monies in the General Fund 101 to the Community Development Trust Fund 550, authorizing and approving an appropriation in the amount of $100,000 from the Community Development Trust Fund 550 to the Homeowner Flooding Mitigation Expense Account 550.000.56,000 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 44, 2020, and move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
Ordinance 44, 2020 has been introduced and by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Morrison, with a request for suspension of all rules. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, actually, Mr. President, if I could, I'd like to kind of comment on 44 and 45.
Please.
We've all heard feedback over these last two events that are pretty hard on citizens who are flooded and their properties damaged. And I think everybody agrees, and I'd like to quote a gentleman by the name of Earl Pitts after he would discuss things in public, like on the radio. He'd always follow up with, "Isn't it about time somebody done something?" And that's pretty much the resounding sound that you hear in the community, whether it's by text, phone call, or email. And I'd just like to say that, actually, I have a question. Now, Mayor, ordinance 44 and 45, didn't you request and prepare both of these?
Yes.
So I'm left to assume that these are your words.
Yes.
You created these documents, so if you don't mind, Mr. President, I'd like to read from ordinance 44, the third whereas. And it says, whereas an account titled Homeowner Flood Mitigation Expense Account has been created to support a program that will assist homeowners in mitigating future basement flooding events. And that is on 44. Then on the third whereas, under ordinance 45, it says, whereas it is proper and right that priorities should be focused on providing homeowners access to prevent and/or mitigate future basement floodings. So I assume, Mayor, that is your intent out of caring for these events that have taken place, and demonstrates that your care and concern, and I think it's also exhibited by comments from Director Woodruff today, that it shows how important this issue is for the administration, and they are working to finally do something. And I appreciate that, because now we can share with the community that things are happening and have been happening, but like Director Woodruff said, some of this stuff takes 15 years. It's a 15-year plan. And I do agree with Mr. Dixon that there needs to be a discussion, because there are further things to talk about, runoff from other areas, and I do agree that it should be a situation where it involves other communities. And I just want to say, Mayor, thank you for addressing this issue this quick and being so proactive that at least it gives some promise for the future. And it won't be a quick fix, but at least somebody's doing something, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Very well said. Ms. Aug, would you please call roll?
Cantor,
I almost forgot. Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Morrison. Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Ordinance 44, 2020 has been adopted. Ordinance 45, 2020, authorizing and approving the following appropriation transfer into Community Development Trust Fund 550 and the amount of $100,000 to the Homeowner Flooding Mitigation Program expense account and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 45, 2020, and move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Rodriguez, has introduced ordinance 45, 2020 and asked for suspension of all rules. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt, second by Mr. Rodriguez. Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Ordinance 45-2020 has been adopted. Resolution 12-2020, authorizing a letter to Michael Cinziano, Auditor of Franklin County, Ohio, allowing for advances on real estate tax settlements to be distributed via electronic transfer.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce Resolution 12-2020, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
Mr. Bailey, seconded by Mr. Cantor, has introduced Resolution 12-2020 and requested suspension of all rules. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Cantor. Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Resolution 12-2020 has been adopted. Resolution 13-2020, resolving to approve the then and the now certificates and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce Resolution 13-2020, move for suspension of all rules.
Second.
Mr. Bailey, seconded by Ms. Heck, has introduced Resolution 13-2020 and requested suspension of all rules. Any discussion on the motion? Clerk, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Bailey, second by Ms. Heck. Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Resolution 13-2020 has been adopted. Our final piece of resolution, or final piece of legislation this evening is Resolution 14-2020, which will be read by title only, appointing a member to the Board of Directors of the Jefferson Township Whitehall Joint Economic Development District, again by title only. This now brings us to our second poll public of the evening. We've got no additional comments that were filed in council office. I'll then open it up for our community date board. Our main champion is not here. I see no pinch hitters. Mayor? We'll then move on to full council. Ms. Coniston, who is not here, so I'll then move to Mr. Cantor.
Oh, she's not here. Thank you, Mr. President. Well, first I'd like to thank everybody for watching. And I know you have some serious concerns. I know that because I was in many homes today. I'd like to thank members of City Council for unanimously passing on this first read, 44 and 45. And I'd like to thank the mayor for offering this and getting this ready for it. You can correct me, but I don't know of any other community that has an assistance program like this that we're going to implement and go on in the future for our residents. And there was a lot of devastation and destruction out there. I want to thank our city workers for getting out there. You're right, they were out there very, very early this morning. Mr. Bailey said it pretty good on when he was introducing 44 and 45, ordinances 44 and 45, and I want to thank you on that. We have a lot of wood to chop, and it's not going to be an easy process. But we'll get through this, and I've heard other people say tonight that other communities had just as bad a time they did. Bexley, Grandview, and Westerville were horrible. We're being proactive here, and we're going head first into third. So we'll get this done, and I know that you'll bring to our table very soon things that council can discuss and go over. My sympathies and my sadness goes with our community right now. You're in my prayers. And I saw today brand new merchandise, new furnaces, new hot water tanks, brand new lawnmower. It was in the basement. So I saw all this destruction today, and not just for my friends and neighbors and constituents, but through my family as well, 2 homes in my immediate family. So we'll get through this. Bear with us. Better times are coming. And I want to thank you again, Mayor. That's all I have, Mr. President. I love you girls. Better be home soon.
Thank you, Mr. Cantor. Ms. Heck?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, everybody watching from home. I agree with the 2 councilmen that spoke prior about the issues. Thank you for bringing legislation so quickly. I look forward to diving into this and hopefully getting many people help that they need to fix this in the future. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Morrison?
Thank you, Mr. President. Hard act to follow. Everybody's made excellent comments. I would like to thank everyone for watching and thank Mr. Dixon for his poll public. Very constructive, and thanks to the mayor, Mr. Woodruff, and Bob for their explanations, and Mr. Cantor, you had some very good input as well. Everybody have a good week and stay safe. It'll get better.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey?
Mr. President, I really have no comment. I can only echo what everyone in this room is feeling in their hearts.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Mr. President. Same. I mean, this is a tough time. We'll get through it as we always do. These are some good steps forward that the community, or that the administration is taking. Again, it's not going to be a quick fix, not going to be an easy fix, but it's a very positive step. I know there's a lot of frustration out there right now, and I know there's more rain coming, so it's going to get a little worse before it gets better, but we'll get through it. Belated birthday wishes to Joanna.
Oh, darn. Thursday, right?
Yeah.
You slid by on us last week. I'm sorry,
To
Chris.
celebrate my birthday.
Yeah.
She's
How about that?
Yes, I can find a drink. I'm 21.
What's your anniversary of the 21st?
Good one. That was a good one. Got a smile.
The last thing, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but make sure that you check your homeowner's policy and that you have water backup coverage. I know the last event was considered some water backup. I don't know about this event. It is. And Ohio is one of the best rates in the country on homeowners insurance. Typically, water backup WBU is like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $25,000, and it's very, very affordable. It adds maybe a few dollars a month on your policy. And as you can see, last couple months ago and today, it would have been very beneficial for a lot of folks. So check with your agent, check your policy, water backup coverage. Honestly, it's so affordable. I would recommend $25,000 for everybody, because that doesn't even get you very far if you've got a finished basement, if you've got a lot of contents down there.
Can renters get that?
Renters can get, I have water backup coverage for $25,000 just because it's that affordable. And it's very smart and very good thing to have. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Ms. Elmore?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for everybody that is watching on Facebook. I would just like to add that between the COVID pandemic, people not working, and just one more thing to add on folks' plate is a lot to handle. And it's just one more thing. And so I would like to I just would like to add that ordinances 44 and 45 is a response to historical flooding events happening in Whitehall. And we are not the only city. However, the mayor and the administration, swift action to create legislation that will deal with, help the folks in the flooding that the flooding has caused, speaks to the care and concern we all have for the residents of this city. And Director Woodruff's I want to thank you for the explanation of the causing for the flooding and the action that we're taking to address the devastation along with Franklin County and FEMA, hopefully. It is a whole lot, and my heart really goes out because we have flooding too. My husband was up early in the morning making sure that we had pumps going and all that, and so I get it, I feel it too. But at the same time, I believe that we have a responsibility, and in our hearts we need to have more care and concern for people, and just treat people with respect. At the end of the day, we are all experiencing things that we have never experienced before. So tolerance in all of this it should be at the highest level, that it's not something that we're trying to do a gotcha on anybody. We need to band together as community and continue to be the community that cares, that offers opportunity and sees an issue and addresses it very quickly. And that's what we've done to help the residents of Whitehall. I would not live any other place because of the people that occupy Whitehall and the administration that is here today. So thank you to everybody represented here. Thank you for the people that that just say thank you, that poll in and give us I'm there with you guys, and I appreciate what you're doing, because we like to hear that. We need to hear that kind of stuff as well, because this is not it's not easy. We all have our issues. And so at the end of the day, my hope for all of us is to just be more community friendly. Help our neighbors. My husband helped a family in Whitehall. We took our pump over. They had 3 feet of water in their basement, couches floating. So we need to reach out and we need to help each other. We just need to help each other. And that's all I have for today. Everybody be well, stay safe, and care for each other. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ms. Elmore, thank you, and I think some really wonderful comments have been made this evening. I think if somebody had said to us 90 days ago that in 90 days from that point we'll have 2 major flooding incidents and COVID-19, nobody would have taken that bet because the odds of it are just so infinitesimal, yet we've experienced all 3 of those. And to Ms. Elmore's point, with so many outside forces we do not have control over, Mother Nature, as well as Mother Nature again with COVID-19, we do need to pull together because we can't let the outside forces get the better of us. We've got to be that inner strength to protect and help each other through it. So I would like to thank the mayor and the administration for the actions you're taking with the legislation you introduced this evening. I'd like to thank the service department and your team with their very proactive efforts early this morning and throughout the day. And I'd like to thank the citizens for understanding and appreciate the times we're in and recognizing that everything that is possible to be done is being done. So your voices are not falling on deaf ears. So with that, I will accept a motion for adjournment.
Mr. President, move to adjourn. Second.
Motion by Mr. Bailey, second by Mr. Rodriguez to adjourn. Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Cantor,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
We are adjourned.